What's really important when we think about the issues we raise with politicians is also to reflect over the recent period since we've had a coalition government, and we could go back further than that, but to illustrate what I mean by this is if you look at some of the decisions taken by the politicians since the coalition came into being, we've had tribunals or unfair dismissal from 12 months to 2 years. The criminal injuries compensation scheme decimated in terms of what it means for our members. We've had VAT increased. We've had a real growing insecurity within the workplace. What's really important when we think about our political campaigning is if we reflect backwards since the coalition came into office and we look at some of the decisions they've taken that impact on the most vulnerable in society and some of the lowest paid workers who are also members of USDOR. One example is the introduction of tribunal fees. Now, fortunately, the union was able and willing to support our members who could not afford to go to tribunal. However, if you look at the number of tribunal claims which have reduced, it's a reflection on many of those individuals out there who maybe not yet joined the trade union, who can't afford natural justice because they can't afford to go to tribunal. That's just one example. There are many examples where employment legislation is being tightened, which impacts on our members. We've also got legislation that impacts in a whole range of ways, whether it's on health and safety. We're now under pressure on the whole lifelong learning agenda with a very clear commitment from the coalition to end that funding in due course. The list is endless. And this is in a sense why you can't ignore politics. I say as General Secretary of USDOR, I don't assume everybody supports maybe my political allegiance to the Labour Party, although the union is affiliated to the Labour Party. What we do is we judge the politicians not on the speeches they make, but on the content of the policies that they put through Parliament. And we've already seen a taking away, a removal, a dismantling of many of the hard-fought rights that we've achieved when we had a Labour government over 3 terms of office. I also want to say it doesn't mean to say we agree with everything that the Labour Party does. We're entitled to criticise it when we feel that the policies don't reflect the interests of our members. But the key message I really want to get over to you is that we do require a political voice. And in May 2015, the people of this country will make a decision as to what political government they want in power. I haven't even mentioned, in a sense, some of the biggest issues like the National Health Service, which we know is one policy that unites all of us. But this is an opportunity to think seriously about being politically active, taking a political interest. And whilst I recognise that sometimes politicians don't always cover themselves in glory, and therefore there can be a frustration with all of the political class as it currently stands, that's the danger time, because that's when we become apathetic and complacent and we don't hold the politicians to account. So we will bring forward why we believe the election is important and receiving the right decision in electing a government that is not only interested in balancing the economy, as important as that is, but also shares our values and our policies and our interests. That's why the Labour Party was formed, and that's why we need to hold them to account. Not to agree when we think they're wrong, but we are entitled to have an opinion. And it's your opinion that's most important, because if we're going to speak to the politicians on these campaigns, we need to evidence-base it. And what I mean by that is politicians will listen if we can actually give them the evidence that this is the way our members feel and their families. And that's why as we lead up to 2015, you'll see a lot more activity around politics and why politics is important. I don't want to pretend that that's a substitute for our industrial work, which is our day job dealing with employers, particularly the worst employers. But we also need a political voice also to bring about the right legislation which protects our members.